Tell me who and what you really are and where you came from, and no veterinary shall touch you. Where is your tribe?
My tribe. They live on another planet in another solar system.
Planet of the Apes shocked audiences in 1968 with one of cinema's most unforgettable endings. But did you know there was an entire alternate ending that was censored and hidden away for 6 decades? Imagine an ending so different that it erased the iconic Statue of Liberty reveal forever. What could have prompted such a drastic cut? Behind the scenes, creative conflicts, political undertones, and technical challenges all collided to bury a version of the story that only now can be revealed. This tale is about more than just a scene. It's a glimpse into Hollywood's hidden history and a forgotten piece of science fiction legacy. The Lost Ending's core mystery. The original ending planned for Planet of the Apes was strikingly different from the one audiences know today. Instead of discovering the half-buried Statue of Liberty, Taylor, the protagonist played by Charlton Heston, was scripted to be shot by an ape sniper before he ever reached the Forbidden Zone. This tragic ending would have focused more on the dangers within the ape society than on the shocking revelation of humanity's fate. Taylor's death would mark the climax, leaving Nova, his companion, and pregnant with his child, to escape alone into the desolate wasteland. This version removes the iconic moment that turned the film into a cultural landmark, replacing it with a conventional tragic finale. The film would end on a somber note, emphasizing human vulnerability and unsure hope through Nova's escape, rather than a devastating visual symbol. The raw existential horror of the Statue of Liberty reveal would simply vanish from the story's conclusion. This change alone could have altered the film's entire legacy. Why was such a dramatic ending buried? The answer lies in the complex forces at work behind the scenes. Early drafts of the screenplay reveal shifting visions for tone and message. The tragic fate of Taylor highlighted human weakness and loss, but lacked the sudden, unforgettable shock that came to define the film. Yet, leaving out the final reveal risked making the film feel more like a standard tragedy than a groundbreaking sci-fi twist. Even the film's central themes would have shifted without that image. The Statue of Liberty breaking through the sand signified not just the fall of civilization, but a reflection on humanity's self-destructive tendencies and denial of truth. Taylor's death without discovery denies audiences that moment of shared realization and bitter irony. The missing twist leaves viewers with questions rather than a chilling answer. As the film approached production, pressures began to mount for a more definitive ending. Studio executives and creative minds wanted a moment that would resonate emotionally and culturally beyond the immediate story arc. The tragic but quiet death scene lacked the emotional punch they sought. This desire set the stage for a last-minute change that would stun audiences and anchor the film in cinematic history. But the decision to cut Taylor's death and keep him alive long enough to see the ruins carried risks. It required a radical reworking of the screenplay and the involvement of a writer skilled at crafting suspense and reveals. This entrusted responsibility eventually fell to Serling, whose influence would prove decisive. Yet, even then, not everyone was convinced that the new ending would work. The presence of Nova as a pregnant woman fleeing the wasteland in the original ending offers a different perspective on survival. Her escape symbolizes hope, but it is muted and isolated, lacking the collective impact of Taylor's discovery. Audiences would have been left wondering about humanity's future, rather than confronting the stark consequences directly. This subtlety, although poignant, may have seemed too understated for a film about societal collapse. Given these stakes, it is clear why the ending remains a fascinating what-if in sci-fi history. The censored footage and discarded scripts have since become an obsession for enthusiasts curious about how close the film came to a very different finale. But the truth behind why this ending stayed hidden goes deeper than mere storytelling choices. Uncovering those truths will reveal a web of creative tensions, political sensitivities, and hidden agendas that shaped the movie's most memorable moment and what was lost in the process. The echoes of these decisions continued to resonate through the next phase of the film's development, where a key figure's vision reshaped the story in unforgettable ways. The impact of Rod Serling's final rewrite. Rod Serling, pretty much the famed creator of The Twilight Zone, brought this sharp creative edge to Planet of the Apes when he got asked to rewrite the script's ending. Yeah, people knew him for being able to mix social commentary with these shocking twists that just land hard. So he also understood, in a sort of quiet way, how much a last reveal can actually steer the whole thing. His take was to lock in the Statue of Liberty scene as the definitive climax, turning the movie into more than your usual sci-fi adventure. That rewrite didn't just reshape the narrative, it kinda boosted the film's cultural weight too. Before all that, Serling's earlier television work kept circling around human folly and ironic cosmic justice. Stuff like "I shot an arrow into the air" and "People are alike all over" has plot fingerprints that feel close to Planet of the Apes, like astronauts stuck on strange worlds and humans turned into exhibit pieces. Those familiar story mechanics gave him a solid footing to build on, then push toward the movie's darker philosophical center. In his version, the alien planet wasn't actually alien at all. It was Earth, altered by humanity's own collapse. Before Serling's revision, the script didn't really carry that same sense of chilling revelation. His draft brought in this vivid, devastating beat that basically changed the film's impact forever. He took an abstract fear, the loss of humanity's future, and made it feel literal and hard to look at through the iconic sight of the crumbled Statue of Liberty. The way he chose to visually nail the story's message to this symbol really shows Serling's storytelling gift, and also how well he understood mythic drama, even when it was uncomfortable. And there's more. Serling's work, it also meant sharpening the dialogue and the character dynamics, which in turn deepened the film's social critique. His background in episodic writing, where truth often shows up disguised as irony, gave him a way to aim at themes like power, ignorance, and oppression with a kind of careful nuance. Without his hand steering the script's gradual evolution, the movie might have felt lighter, less philosophical, and less complex than it ended up being. Still, Serling wasn't exactly sailing through smooth waters during all of that. Keeping up with studio demands, producer expectations, and the director's vision turned out to be a constant compromise, and that's not easy. The script went through multiple rewrites, and there were plenty of discussions about tone and pacing, some of which did, blunt the original sharpness he brought in. Even so, his contribution was essential because it gave the whole thing its framework, especially for what became the film's most unforgettable moment. Beyond the script, Rod Serling's influence kinda bled into the casting and production phases too. His rapport with actors and filmmakers sort of helped form the mood of unease and mystery that moves through the whole movie without really letting go. That whole atmosphere seemed to get the audience ready for a finale that wasn't only shocking, but also unsettling and kinda thought-dragging, in a good way. And there's the Planet of the Apes link, which really shows a strange crossover between television and film at a moment when TV writers rarely made that leap into major cinema. Serling's talent for reshaping Twilight Zone sensibilities pushed the limits of what a science fiction movie could express, especially by the late 1960s. In a sense, the whole thing turned into an extension of his body of work, like a Twilight Zone episode that had gotten too huge for TV. Put together, the sudden visuals, the social commentary, and the eerie narrative, all tied down by Serling's own point of view, made Planet of the Apes feel different from other sci-fi titles around then. His last rewrite basically gave the film that edge of existential dread, the kind that still hits people now. It was a risk, sure, a gamble that changed everything and kept the story from ending quietly in sheer tragedy. How the film's other creative elements worked in tandem with Serling's vision is just as fascinating. This leads us to the man behind the iconic ape appearances, whose extraordinary skills and secret career added a remarkable layer to the movie's legacy. Behind the scenes, makeup secrets. John Chambers was the makeup artist responsible for creating every ape prosthetic in Planet of the Apes, and his work was groundbreaking. His designs brought to life the three ape species with astonishing realism, setting a new standard for special effects makeup in the industry. What many don't know is that Chambers' talents extended beyond Hollywood. In a secret parallel career, he crafted disguise kits for the CIA. His expertise in creating believable faces for actors became a key asset in covert operations years later. Chambers' approach to makeup was rooted in his background helping disfigured World War II veterans. This unique experience taught him how to create prosthetics that appeared as living tissue rather than stiff or rubbery masks. His skill made the ape characters not only visually convincing, but emotionally expressive, a crucial factor in the film's ability to engage audiences. The makeup process, however, was demanding, initially taking up to 6 hours per actor, though Chambers later refined it to about 3 hours. Beyond the artistry, Chambers' connection to espionage is one of the film's most surprising hidden stories. In the early 1970s, he worked under the codename Jerome Calloway to develop disguise kits for CIA agents. This secret work culminated in helping coordinate the famous 1980 rescue of 6 American diplomats trapped during the Iran hostage crisis. Chambers' fake production company, Studio 6, produced a phony sci-fi film called Argo, which allowed the diplomats to escape disguised as a Canadian film crew. This real-life spy mission remained classified for years, but eventually became the basis for the 2012 film Argo, showcasing Chambers' role behind the scenes. John Goodman's portrayal of Chambers in Argo brought wider recognition to the makeup artist's extraordinary double life. The fact that a man responsible for iconic movie monsters also contributed to the most daring Cold War rescue adds an exciting layer of history to Planet of the Apes. Chambers' contributions to the film itself were not without challenges. Applying and perfecting ape makeup for such a large cast created logistical hurdles. Approximately 80 makeup artists were needed on set to transform the actors, a number so large that other productions were delayed due to shortages. The actors could not eat solid food while wearing prosthetics, surviving mostly on milkshakes consumed through straws, small details that reveal just how grueling the process was. Chambers' influence expanded beyond Planet of the Apes, as 2 years earlier, he had created the pointed Vulcan ears worn by Leonard Nimoy as Spock on Star Trek. This crossover established him as the mastermind behind 2 of science fiction's most iconic looks. His innovative techniques revolutionized makeup effects, blending artistry with technical precision. Understanding Chambers' role illuminates how crucial makeup was to the film's believability and tone. Without these convincing ape faces, the social commentary and dramatic tension might have fallen flat. The makeup made the apes relatable and frightening, underscoring the film's exploration of hierarchy, intelligence, and prejudice. Knowing the lengths and secrets behind these prosthetics adds depth to the film's legacy, reminding us that Planet of the Apes was not just a story of the future, but also one shaped by hidden layers of human ingenuity and covert history. Next, the complicated challenges faced during production reveal yet more unexpected stories that influenced the final film audiences experienced. Production challenges and controversies. Planet of the Apes kind of ran into a bunch of unexpected hurdles during production. And some of the problems ended up being, the kind of things Hollywood people love to repeat over time. One of the most notorious cases involved Edward G. Robinson, a very respected actor who was originally brought on for the film but was quietly let go before filming ever really got going. For decades, the official version was that Robinson had a real rough time with the physically demanding ape makeup, especially because of his age. That explanation stuck for a while, sure, but what actually happened behind the scenes was a lot less polished. And, honestly, it shows how blunt filmmaking can be. Apparently, Robinson wouldn't shave his beard, and because of that, the prosthetic ape makeup couldn't be applied properly. He also reportedly tried to bring in an independent makeup artist to design a custom appliance that would accommodate his facial hair. Instead of helping, that whole idea made the makeup team's work harder, not smoother, and it added even more stress to an already tight schedule. Makeup artist John Chambers later said that Robinson's stubborn beard became a deal-breaker, full stop. Producer Arthur P. Jacobs, who was already looking for a cheaper alternative, used the situation as an opening, and that's when Robinson got removed from the project. Rather than openly exposing the real reason, both sides went along with a health-related cover story, more or less. That public explanation stayed in place for more than 30 years, keeping Robinson's dignity in front of fans and within the industry. In the same stretch, Maurice Evans slid in as Robinson's replacement and handled the part with solid professionalism. No fuss. So this episode kind of shows, in a practical sense, how things like makeup application can unexpectedly reshape a film's casting, even if the audience never actually learns what happened. And honestly, the production didn't stop at casting either. There were lots of small improvisations that ended up steering the film's tone and giving it those unforgettable beats. For instance, in the hard scene where Taylor confronts the ape tribunal, the three orangutan judges spontaneously recreated the "see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil" gesture. Nobody wrote it into the script drafts. It just surfaced in rehearsal, almost like an offhand joke. It came from a conversation between director Franklin Schaffner and Charlton Heston, and neither of them thought it would make it through the editing process. Test audiences, however, found the gag amusing, providing a much-needed moment of levity in what was otherwise a dark and foreboding film. The studio decided to keep the shot in, even though both the director and the actors reportedly felt embarrassed by it. Over time, that improvised gesture sort of became one of the most iconic and widely referenced images from the whole movie. And honestly, it kind of proved that unplanned moments can sometimes land deeper with audiences. The makeup process itself proved grueling and time-consuming, but a few of these production hurdles kind of fed into creativity and problem-solving. As actors endured hours inside prosthetics, they also had to adjust to limitations like restricted eating, relying mostly on milkshakes, which they drank through straws. Those sacrifices added to the film's gritty realism and helped the actors embody non-human characters convincingly. Despite all that, the cast and crew still kept things professional, even if it meant covering up certain true stories to protect reputations or to avoid disruptions in production continuity. This blend of behind-the-scenes tension and ingenuity ultimately shaped the tone and the texture of the film. It's a reminder that great art, more often than not, comes from complex collaboration and compromise. As the movie started to come together visually and narratively, sound ended up playing an unexpectedly pivotal role in defining the film's atmosphere. The studio's resourceful use of sound effects added another layer of intrigue to the end result. The vehicle that carried an astronaut to the end of civilization shared its voice with a pop culture icon in a way few would have imagined. Sound effects and studio resourcefulness. One of the most fascinating production details behind Planet of the Apes involves the film's sound design, especially the roaring engine noise during Taylor's spacecraft crash. Sound designers Herman Lewis and David Dockendorf were working within a tight budget and limited time constraints. Rather than recording new effects, they creatively drew on the extensive 20th Century Fox sound library for existing audio cues. The result was a jet engine roar immediately recognizable to fans of another popular series. That exact engine sound was previously used for the Batmobile in the 1960s Batman television show, which had just aired on the same studio lot a couple of years earlier. So, the spacecraft that brought an astronaut to the brink of civilization actually shares its sonic signature with Adam West's iconic crime-fighting car. This surprising connection links the film not just to science fiction, but also to the broader pop culture landscape of the time. Reusing familiar sound effects like this was a practical solution that demonstrates Hollywood's economy behind the scenes. Tight budgets and production schedules often force creative teams to be resourceful. Instead of investing in costly new recordings, leveraging existing assets saved money while still providing high-quality effects that fit the scene's needs. Sound was crucial for convincing audiences of the realism and intensity of Taylor's journey. The spacecraft's roar helps sell the peril of the crash landing and increases the tension right from the start. Even though it was recycled, the sound became inseparable from the film's atmosphere and narrative momentum. Beyond the crash, the film's sound design contributed to its unsettling mood by pairing naturalistic audio with moments of eerie silence. For example, the emotional peak of the movie, the Statue of Liberty reveal, was deliberately presented without music, letting only the sound of crashing waves underscore the horror. This bold sound choice sharpened the scene's emotional impact and allowed Charlton Heston's raw performance to resonate with audiences. The creative use of sound also mirrored the film's themes of repurposing the familiar into something strange and unsettling. Just as apes themselves are familiar creatures transformed into dominant species, the sounds carried familiar origins, repurposed to fit an alien and dystopian world. This parallel adds a subtle thematic depth to the film's production design. This blending of familiar and new, along with practical ingenuity, helped make Planet of the Apes a film that transcended its sci-fi roots. Its soundscape contributed to the immersive experience, making audiences believe in a world both alien and alarmingly close to home. These sound and makeup innovations, combined with unpredictable production challenges, created a rich tapestry behind the iconic film. But none of this compares to the complexities involved in adapting the original novel's story for the screen. The novel's complexity versus film adaptation. Pierre Boulez's 1963 novel La Planète des Singes, translated as Planet of the Apes, gives, in a way, a much more intricate, layered storyline than the 1968 film adaptation does. It leans on a framing mechanism the movie pretty much lets go of entirely. Two astronauts stumble upon a bottle message floating out there in space, and inside it sits the written record of a human voyager stuck on the ape world. That manuscript becomes the real backbone, where we follow Ulysses, the central character who, little by little, manages to escape from the apes. However, what really sets the novel apart is this striking double twist right at the very end, which people at the time basically deemed too complicated for a visual adaptation of all things. After Ulysses returns to Earth and notices that apes have sort of taken over there as well, the narrative sort of pulls back one more time. The two astronauts who are reading his account, well, they are revealed to be chimpanzees themselves, kind of sneering, dismissing the notion that humans ever had any real intelligence. So the story critique gets this extra layer. I mean, observers who are stuck in their own prejudice can't recognize the truth. And it's almost funny in a grim way because it actually echoes the themes running through the whole novel. This twist, in a way, puts readers right inside the story's central irony, pushing them to face denial, superiority, and the whole repetitive, circular motion of oppression. The novel's complexities made it hard to translate to film, especially under the commercial and technical limits of the 1960s. Screenwriters and producers worried audiences would go for such a challenging narrative layout. They wanted something clearer, more direct, with a shocking but singular reveal. Tim Burton's 2001 remake of Planet of the Apes tried to move nearer to Boole's original ending, but the outcome was widely disliked by audiences and critics alike. The novel's layered framing and philosophical afterthought were just too dense for modern blockbuster conventions, and yeah, that matters. Instead, the 1968 film leaned into visual metaphors, choosing a climactic, symbolic beat rather than intricate narrative complexity. While the film sort of simplifies the story, it still keeps that core idea, humanity's fallibility and self-destruction. You know, it's all there. The choice to zoom in on the Statue of Liberty scene let the filmmakers land this immediate emotional jolt. That was something most people across the world could grasp pretty fast. In a way, it changed the novel's more abstract political and social commentary into a visceral cinematic experience, not just an idea on paper. Even if the movie loses the novel's narrative framing and that double twist, it still drags along a bunch of thematic echoes from the book. You still get the exploration of species hierarchy, the fragility of civilization, and the risks of willful ignorance. All those things remain pretty central. This emphasis also helped the movie connect straight into the anxieties of the late 1960s, including civil rights struggles and those Cold War fears. By trimming down the plot, the filmmakers basically built a sci-fi allegory that could be widely understood, talked about, and argued over. That kind of accessibility, it fueled decades of sequels, remakes, and spin-offs. Still, for people who loved the original novel, the layered twists feel like a quiet reminder that there's more under the surface, even in this iconic saga. As the actors embodied these themes through their performances, something remarkable happened off-screen that mirrored the film's own exploration of social hierarchy. Social dynamics on set. During breaks in filming Planet of the Apes, something unexpected and organic occurred among the actors wearing elaborate ape prosthetics. Without any instruction or direction, the cast naturally segregated themselves by species. Gorillas clustered together, orangutans shared meals and downtime, and chimpanzee actors similarly grouped with each other. This spontaneous social grouping reflected the film's exploration of hierarchy and tribalism in a surprising real-world experiment. Roddy McDowall, who played Cornelius, and Lou Wagner, who portrayed Lucius, both confirmed that this behavior repeated every day of production. This unspoken division among cast members wasn't prompted by rivalry, but seemed a natural response to the time-consuming and immersive ape makeup process. The actors spent hours transformed into their characters, And this physical and emotional immersion fostered genuine social bonds aligned with their roles. The phenomenon created a living echo of the movie's core themes, blurring fiction and reality. The real-life social experiment highlighted how innate group identity and division can arise even in artificial environments. Just as the film shows different ape species vying for power and status, the actors themselves embodied those same social dynamics outside the camera's frame. This accidental mimicry lent an additional layer of authenticity to the performances. Immersed in the behavior and attitudes of their ape species, the actors could channel subtle social signals and body language shaped by their off-screen interactions. It created a rare crossover where lived experience strengthened the film's message. At the same time, this dynamic underscored the film's cautionary tale about tribalism and exclusion. Without guidance or rules, individuals gravitated toward familiar groups, drawing boundaries that echoed real social divisions and hierarchies. This demonstrated the pervasive human tendency to categorize and segregate. From these subtle moments of human behavior growing out of makeup and performance, the film ultimately conveyed not just a story about apes, but a mirror held up to our own social complexities and divisions. This human drama beneath the surface set the stage for Planet of the Apes to enter the world amid one of the most turbulent moments in modern history, influencing its reception and legacy in ways still felt today. The cultural context and legacy. Planet of the Apes premiered on April 3, 1968, and at that time, America was kind of sliding into deep social unrest. Just one day later, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, which tossed the country into real grief, anger, and protest. With that background, the film's ideas about hierarchy, oppression, control, and denial felt uncomfortably on the nose. What first looked like science fiction turned into this sharp mirror of everyday injustice pretty fast. People watching the film in 1968 didn't just see talking apes and a weird future world. They also felt those questions hanging around, like who gets labeled civilized, who ends up silenced, and who is allowed to steer the truth. The apes class structure, plus this refusal to challenge authority, sort of echoed the racial and political tensions of that era, giving the movie a cultural pull way beyond its genre. It's kind of shocking how the Statue of Liberty ending made that message unforgettable, and you can feel it in the air. The reveal that Taylor had already been on Earth all along forced viewers to stare straight at the unsettling thought that humanity could have ended itself, from pride, violence, and denial, like it was right there the whole time. Little clues, breathable air, familiar plants, and human artifacts seemed almost too ordinary, like they were quietly tucked in plain sight, and that made the twist hit harder. Over time, Planet of the Apes turned into one of science fiction's most influential films, pushing sequels, television shows, reboots, and even more intricate political storytelling inside the genre. And John Chambers' pioneering prosthetic makeup, honestly, it also lifted Hollywood's expectations for visual effects. Decades later, the film still resonates, because the warning still feels sharp. Societies often bury dangerous truths just to keep fragile systems from cracking. That's why its legacy keeps growing, even now. Planet of the Apes reveals a powerful tale of buried truths, both on and off screen, that challenge what we think we know. From its lost ending to hidden secrets behind the makeup and soundtrack, the film's legacy runs deep. If this journey through its unseen history surprised you, be sure to like and subscribe for more fascinating stories from your favorite films.